Hi guys, welcome to the CA classroom. Today we are in episode 3 of Articleship series. So today we are going to discuss how will your articleship experience be if you're going to take your articleship in Big 4 tax team. So in the previous two episodes we discussed about how will your articleship be in a large size firm and how will articleship be in a Big 4 audit team. If you're interested in those videos, the link will be there in the description for the video. Now, today we're going to discuss how will articleship experience be in a tax team in a Big 4. So for that, we'll have on our show CA Shwetha. She has pursued her articleship in EY Chennai Direct Tax team, and post qualification, she worked with Deloitte and KPMG, and currently she's working with Freshworks. So let's have Shwetha on the show, guys. Hi, Shwetha.
Yeah. Hi, Karthik. Thank you so much for the introduction and thanks for having me on your
Yeah,
channel.
thank you, Shwetha. So as you know, like we'll proceed to the questions. So
Yeah.
you have three questions to talk about your articleship. So question number one is going to be how has been your experience working with a Big Four in the direct tax team, and what kind of exposure did you have?
Yeah. So, to answer your question, I think, you've already mentioned that I worked in the direct tax team, which is correct. So, I mean, just to set the context for anybody who's watching it. So, typically, with respect to tax in Big Four, we have different specializations. So, one is definitely indirect tax, and within direct tax, you predominantly have transfer pricing and other than transfer pricing, and the other than transfer pricing can be further bucketed into advisory services that we provide, litigation services that we provide, and of course all of us also pitch in during return seasons to file in returns for our clients. So to answer your question on the exposure, definitely the exposure was really good. Both, so I mean, I look at it in terms of technical exposure and other than technical exposure. So technically, if for anybody for whom tax is their cup of tea, Big Four is definitely a good place to gain strong footing in terms of it could be direct tax or indirect tax. I mean, post GST, I think indirect tax is also I mean, it's a huge avenue for people to kind of gain expertise in. So yeah, so I think technically exposure at like say 18, 19, when you start your articles, you don't really it's a great opportunity to kind of get the chance to like interact with legal counsels if you're into tax, and or just interact with really huge industry players. So like I've had the opportunity to work in different kinds of industries: service, construction, manufacturing, and like I also think it's usually a Big Four practice wherein articles are definitely given the liberty to kind of own your client account. You are given the entire responsibility for it. Of course there's a supervisory figure like as a manager or a senior manager, but then you are definitely accountable for what kind of orders you receive, what submissions you make, the hearing and the outcomes. Definitely you do play a role in all of that. So I think at a very general level, you definitely get that are you naturally become more accountable for the work that you do when you are in a Big Four. So I think that's a very essential skill set that you learn at that age. And I think tax wise also something that I have encountered in a Big Four, like I've also
Yeah.
interacted with colleagues from mid-sized firms who have done a
Okay.
mix of tax and audit. So something that happens in a Big Four is like Income Tax Act kind of becomes like your Bible, so you
Got
refer
it.
to it every day. Probably they do it in a mid-sized firm also, but then since you do a lot like say bank audit, stat audit and tax, maybe the emphasis that they that is being attached to tax is a little lesser, I would
Mm,
say. So that way, for anybody who definitely wants to pursue a career in tax, Big Four is a great place to get like good exposure.
good. Thank you, Shweta. I think you also answered our second question. So our second question is like who should opt for articleship in a Big Four tax team? Someone who has a
Yeah.
passion towards tax.
Yes. So I think to kind of just elaborate on this one.
Yeah,
So
sure, sure.
specifically wanted to mention this. So I have seen like broadly two types of, or two categories of people who pursued articles in Big Four tax. People like me, in the sense I finished 3 years of articles in tax. I enjoyed it. There were a lot of good learnings out of it. but eventually I wanted to move to finance. And this 3 years of, like, I was basically a person who wanted to do articles in Big Four primarily for this advantage of study leave of like what 4 to 5 months.
5 months. Yeah.
And yeah, that's a huge plus at that point of time. It's a really big advantage, and I wanted to go for that. So I also did not have any clarity on what my long term goal
Plans are
is in
okay.
terms of
Mm.
what do I actually want to do, um, which industry, which domain of expertise, etc. So I went ahead with tax, and those 3 years kind of I realized that okay, maybe I want to streamline it into finance. So eventually got into audit diligence, and now I am in finance and industry. So, and there are people like me who kind of divert their path after tax and get into this thing. Whilst this also has its advantages, because right now when there is an issue, or when there is like when there is some client that we want to advise on, when I was earlier working with the other Big Fours. So you get to look at it in different vantage points. Like if you have an audit experience, you look at it differently. If you have tax experience, you look at it differently. This also has its advantages. But having said that, if whoever is watching it has a clear idea as to I definitely want to get into the lines of finance, then go for it. Don't then there's no special reason for you to like really go for tax articles. But anybody who wants to, like, if you know for sure you are going to practice, because I
Yeah.
see a lot of people, it's very beneficial for people who want to get into practice, because you first of all you do a lot of networking here, you get a good idea as to like who the clients are, etc. And you carry some of that when you go for practice. And practice is also something where you can definitely get a lot of good revenue from tax, especially after GST has come. So if practice is one of your this thing, definitely think about going for
Big Four
tax.
tax.
Yeah, it's a very good option. And apart from that, if you really like tax, like IPCC we do, and we get an idea as
Yeah.
to like what tax is about, then there's no reason to not go for it. Like you do have very good opportunities in industry. Like you can get into like their tax teams, and you also have like you can qualify yourself further with respect to, there are some international tax
Tax exam.
exams. Like
Okay.
I think one thing that I am aware of is ADIT, which is I think Advanced Diploma in International Taxation. So there are like friends of mine who've written that and who've kind of landed opportunities abroad.
Nice.
So yes, so I think yeah, that is something that I wanted to specify. If you have clarity on doing something else, then this might not be for you.
Got it. That's actually very important. Thank
Yeah,
you. So then, like, we'll go to the last question now.
yeah.
So the last one, like, in your experience of working with Big Fours in articleship and even post qualification, you worked with KPMG and Deloitte. So can you just suggest for articles like few pros and cons of pursuing articleship and Big Four tax team?
Yeah,
Like one, just a
honestly,
couple of pros and couple of cons. Yeah.
the pros list is very long, but I'm going to kind of try to, outline just the key ones.
Okay.
See, I think to be honest, at like 19, not that many people have a very clear idea as to which way
Exactly.
you want to go. But the biggest plus of doing your articles in a Big Four is you interact with a lot of people, and over the period of 3 years you eventually get an idea as to what do I want to do. I think
Got it.
that was like that is the best thing that happened to me with respect to articleship, although I didn't really follow tax. um, that is very important thing, because I still look at a lot of people who have qualified, but like I don't really know what I want to do. You don't really want to be there, because of course if you have an idea as to what you want to do, that gives you a lot of momentum, and it also gives you an edge from a recruitment perspective. When you are competing with like so many people after for a job, definitely being a Big Four article gives you an edge over somebody else. It's about how you want to leverage it. You can leverage it in a very good way. And I think those two. And I think primarily those two, that is
Yeah.
what
Sure. Sure.
I would want to say.
And coming to cons. Yeah.
uh, okay, so one, negative, or like, I can put this as a, like, say, con of doing articles in tax in Big Four is there's too much of specialization in a Big Four. Like, when I was doing my articles, which is like at least 5-6 years back, it was a little better. But right now, if I look at, like, say, corporate tax, there is something called as M&A tax, like mergers and
Yeah.
acquisition. Then you have uh, core litigation, and then you have core advisory, then you have core tax diligence work. So the more you bifurcate it, it really dilutes how much an article can get to do. So it's more like a suggestion. Anybody who wants to still go ahead and do, like, their articles in tax, just do a little bit of research as to what your role
Will
will
work.
entail.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that is very important. You don't want to get your role way too diluted.
Got it.
um but yeah, I think that's about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So just one follow-up question for you. So what about the
Yeah.
work-life balance for a student who does articleship in Big?
uh
Like how like will you have
so
time for classes and all of that? Yeah.
I think, to be honest, tax article will definitely have better work life than an audit article. I'll tell you why. Because a lot of tax work is seasonal.
Seasonal.
At least so of course, in that season period of time, it's crazy, but at least you get to plan your work and plan
Got
your
it.
classes accordingly. So that's a very good advantage for any person who wants to,
Articleship and
do.
tax.
Correct. And also, travel is relatively much
Lower. Yes.
lesser
So
in
you will be
tax.
like no travel, almost zero travel.
Correct. So, you'd be commuting, say, to tribunal, tax office, and your office. But it's relatively a desk job, so that is also a plus. Yeah, but work life in a Big Four is, of course, probably more challenging than in a
Yeah.
mid-sized
But I
firm.
think as an article, you have to experience that. Like that's what makes you right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, you really learn how to handle pressure over
Pressure.
that period of 3 years. It helps you with your CA exams, because CA exams, after a point of time, it's just a mind game.
Exactly.
Everybody goes through those 8 subjects and books, but it's more of a mental game as to how much pressure you can handle. So articleship in Big Four will gear you up for that, definitely. So I think that's also, and the kind of confidence boost that you get when you're able to handle those 3 years, that is also,
Very true.
is a significant addition.
Yeah. Helps you in like life and exams. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So thank you so much, Shweta, for sharing your inputs. It was good
Yeah,
having you on the show.
yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show. It was
Yeah.
really good.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Shweta.
thank you.